నమస్కారం. డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ సార్వత్రిక విశ్వవిద్యాలయం విద్యార్థులకు స్వాగతం. ఈ ప్రసారంలో
sampling is an age-old practice. We all of us practice sampling, not knowing that it is a huge science. Only during the last few decades, we have found that sampling is a big theory. We all practice it because it is convenient, it is less time consuming, less costly, and that is why we practice this sampling method whenever we are interested in large scale buying or large scale selling. If I go to the market to purchase a bag of rice, I don't have to look into every particle of rice to find out whether it is of the required quality or not. I just examine a sample and decide that the bag must contain the same quality. Similarly, a man selling some bales of cotton to a buyer cannot expect the buyer to look into every pinch of cotton in the bale to find out the quality of cotton. Large scale buying and large scale selling is possible only through sampling. There are certain other situations where sampling has to be done. Today, we have extended this theory of sampling even to measure the parameter of the universe, a measurement of the universe through a measurement of the sample. Say, if we have the sample mean, we try to estimate the mean of the universe. But the question that is always before us is that we do all this with a strong belief that if the sample is a random sample, then on average it has the characteristics of the universe. And also, the larger the sample size, the more nearer are we to our belief. But would it be possible to practice sampling in every situation? It is not so. Can we rely on the sample completely to determine the characteristics of the universe? Certainly not. We have to see that we adapt ourselves, or we use the adapted method of sampling and make more a scientific approach, so that sampling techniques have got to be used in order to see that the sample becomes more reliable to represent the universe. So let us discuss the various techniques that we have to make use of in sampling in order to see that sampling becomes a reliable tool to see or estimate the characteristics of the universe. We make use of three broadly categorized methods. Number one, we say probability or random sampling. Number two, we say judgment sampling or subjective sampling or purposive sampling. Number three, we say mixed sampling, the mixture of the first and the second methods. Let us study these different techniques that we make use of one by one. The first one, simple random sampling. What does it mean? We take up a sample at random and examine this random sample by certain methods. The first one, the popularly known the lottery method, where we make identical chits or identical cards and then name the individuals according to the numbers that may be there on the chits or the cards, and then pick up samples one by one, so that we make use of the lottery method in order to pick up the required sample. But this method becomes cumbersome the moment we find that the sample size is very, very large, and it is difficult to use this particular method. Therefore, we go in for some other method which we call as the random table numbers method. We find Tippett's random number tables, Kendall and Smith's random table numbers, Yule's random number tables, and so on, which help us to pick up the required samples by the use of these random number tables. On these random number tables, 4-figure or 5-figure numbers are arranged randomly, and then what all we have to do is open a page at random and take up these numbers either vertically or horizontally, row wise or column wise, and to get the required sample. This method has been found very effective and has become very, very popular, and is supposed to give us a very good random sample. If the number is, let us say, only a 3-figure number, then out of the first 4 figures, we omit the first figure and take the last 3 numbers. Similarly, if the size of the universe is less than 100, then we take the last 2 figures. This is done systematically so that we are able to get the random sample that is required. But one very important factor that we have to bear in mind while we use this random method is that the universe must be finite. We must be able to determine exactly the size of the universe. And the second important rule also is there, that whenever the sample is picked up, it should not bear any kind of relationship with the universe for which the character is being studied. For example, if we are looking at the performance of 10th class students in a school and we pick up 10 schools at random, then we should not think of the characteristic of the performance, but can think in terms of any other characteristic when we choose our sample. That means it should not bear any kind of relationship with the particular character that we have in our mind. This random sampling method, of course, is very convenient and found to be extremely useful, but it has its own limitations. Although it is free of human prejudice or bias, as we call it, yet there are certain practical difficulties in the use of random sample, because the situations in every case is not the same. The units may not be homogeneous, all units may not be the same. So, random sampling sometimes becomes totally useless. Therefore, it is necessary to adapt ourselves and make more a scientific approach in order to see that certain other methods are also being employed. Secondly, let us think of judgment sampling or subjective sampling. Here, the investigator's judgment is being made use of in picking up a sample. Doubtless, there is this bias or human prejudice that is involved, but the investigator knows that is the only place where information is available accurately. For example, if we are studying a problem on use of telephones, we have got to necessarily go in for the telephone directory to pick up the sample. We can't do just random sampling including each and every one. Similarly, if the investigator knows that information is available only from these particular individuals, he has to use his judgment in order to include them in his sample. This particular method naturally suffers from human bias. The third one, of course, is mixed sampling, where there is a mixture of random sampling as well as a mixture of judgment sampling. For example, we have let us say stratified sampling, that is the third one. Stratified sampling means the universe is divided into groups of stratas using a stratifying factor, and then we select from each group samples at random. For example, if we want to study the educational expenditure of a university student, we can't group all the students into one and just pick up a sample. We have got to divide them into groups, let us say arts, commerce, science, engineering, medicine, law, and so on, and then pick up a sample from each one of them, so that our sample naturally would contain all types of students whose expenditure is being noted, failing which a random sample will not satisfy our objective. Now, this stratified sampling has also certain disadvantages. If the stratifying factor, as we say, is not correct, then the whole procedure of sampling becomes totally useless. Therefore, it is necessary to know how to prepare these strata. Sometimes it is not possible to do it easily. Let us pass on to the third method. Let us say the third method is systematic sampling. What is the systematic sampling? In this method, either the whole universe is arranged in a serial order, let us say alphabetically or numerically, and then the first sample is being picked up at random, and then thereafter the gap between the first and the second and the third being one and the same, we go on picking up samples. For example, if one is a moderator of a certain paper in a university examination, all the papers are stacked up before him and he has to moderate, let us say 10% of the papers. The first one he picks up at random, let us say the sixth one, and thereafter he goes on picking up the 16th, 26th, 36th, and so on. When we make use of this method of systematic sampling, first we are required to find out what is n, that is universe size. Then once we decide this universe size, how much of a sample do we require is to be decided. If we say 10% means 10 in every 100. So naturally, if n is equal to 10, then k naturally will be equal to n by n, that is 100 by 10. Supposing n is equal to 20, then naturally k will be equal to 100 by 20, which is equal to 5, and n is equal to 20, and so on. So systematic sampling involves what we call as this k, every kth item, 2 kth item, 3 kth item and so on. But this systematic sampling, being so simple and easy, has its own limitation or demerit. If supposing every 6th item we take up, let us say the first item, and then go on 16th to 26th, 36th and so on. And if that 6th item happens to be a corner shop, then 16th also happens to be a corner shop, 26th also happens to be a corner shop. Then what happens is, our sample gets a biased picture and not a true picture. It will not become a true sample. So, in systematic sampling, there is every possibility of the sample getting biased. Now, let us move to the next technique of sampling. That is, let us say the third one is what we call as multi-stage sampling. In multi-stage sampling, we go on picking up samples at different stages. For example, we have this country of India first, and from this country we divide them into states first, and then we pick up a sample, random sample, first stage, a few states are picked up. Second stage, from the first stage we pass on to the second stage. From the states that we have picked up, we try to pick up certain districts at random. Third stage, from the districts that we have picked up at random, we pick up certain mandals at random. Fourth stage, from mandals that we have picked up at random, we pick up certain villages at random. And these villages become the core of the sample which we are going to use. So, this type of sampling is what we call as multi-stage sampling. Similarly, we have cluster sampling. The universe is divided into clusters. Let us say Hyderabad city. Hyderabad city is first divided into about 40 zones. And from these 40 zones, we pick up some 10 zones at random as our sample. And make enquiries in these 10 zones. So, what all we have done is divided the entire city into 40 zones, from which these 10 zones have been picked up at random. Now, it is very important that these zones which we pick up must have very few numbers or few individuals. If the number is very big, then it becomes very difficult. Few individuals. At the same time, all the zones must contain same number of items. So, this method is what we call as cluster sampling. Then we move on to the next method of sampling, which we call as quota sampling. Quota sampling. Here, quota is determined. Quota is determined and the investigator is free to pick up samples as he desires, but bearing in mind that the restrictions are there on the quota. For example, if we say scheduled castes must get 30% and then scheduled tribes must get 15%, backward classes must get 40%, the rest of them only to the forward classes. He can pick up any individuals such that this particular quota does not go beyond what is fixed. So, he has his own bias in picking up the sample, but he sticks to what we call as the quota, and that is what we call as quota sampling. Of course, this method is made use of particularly when we think in terms of this election surveys, market surveys and so on, where the bias of the investigator is always there. These are the various techniques that we make use of in sampling. Having studied the various methods of sampling, now let us try to study the errors that may creep up on account of the use of the sampling method. These errors are of two types. One, we call them as sampling errors, and the other we call them as non-sampling errors. First, let us take up the sampling errors. What is an error in fact? The error is the difference between the true value and the value estimated through the sample. Now, if this error has to be minimized, there are a number of ways in which we can do it. The first one is that we have to use the right type of sampling. If we pick up a wrong sample, naturally the error will be more. In fact, it is necessary that the characteristics of the sample on an average must represent the characteristics of the universe. This we call as the law of statistical regularity. Not only that, the size of the sample must be large enough to represent the universe. Larger the size, the greater is the precision. This being so, it is necessary to avoid these errors by choosing the right sample and of the right size. Sampling errors are due to wrong choice of sample, choice of wrong size of the sample, and sometimes on account of the bias of the investigator. The non-sampling errors arise because of the defects in administration, that is, wrong totaling, wrong labeling, and similarly any kind of what we call as clerical error. Now, these are some of them which can be studied. Wherever it is possible, we can try to avoid these errors, but it is necessary that we have to make use of the right choice of the sample and to see that the right size of the sample is also taken up to get the exact precision that we so desire. As against the sampling method, we know that we have to use the census method or the complete count. Under the census method or the complete count, it is absolutely necessary that all the individuals that may form the census must be known. But it may not be possible if the number is so large. So the census method sometimes becomes impracticable because of the huge size that it has. But in sampling, it is not necessary. Although the size must be finite, but by picking up some small sample, it is possible for us, a diminutive size of the universe is enough in order to make conclusions about the universe. Census method, of course, is more accurate than the sampling method, but sometimes becomes highly cumbersome and highly expensive. Therefore, we have got to resort to the sampling method, and we have already discussed the various techniques that we make use of under the sampling method. It must be borne in mind that this sampling technique is an excellent means in order to obtain information about the universe and is practiced throughout. But at the same time, we have got to have a finite population. That means all the individuals from which the universe constitutes must be formed, and then only we can think of a random sample, otherwise we can't pick up a random sample. Similarly, there are a number of difficulties. How to avoid what we call as human bias? How to get the right precision? Sometimes we may have to pick up a very, very large sample in order to see that we get the exact precision that we need. This can be mathematically or statistically found out as to what should be the size of the sample if we require a certain amount of precision. The various methods that we have studied are necessary just because of adaptability and a scientific approach to the subject of sampling. Therefore, sampling techniques are absolutely necessary in order to make them more and more suitable to different situations which we come across in our life.
ఈ కార్యక్రమంపై మీ అభిప్రాయాల్ని, సూచనల్ని, సలహాల్ని ఆహ్వానిస్తున్నాం. మా చిరునామా ద డైరెక్టర్, ఆడియో విజువల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ రీసెర్చ్ సెంటర్, డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, ప్రొఫెసర్ జి రామరెడ్డి మార్గ్, రోడ్ నంబర్ 46, జూబ్లీ హిల్స్, హైదరాబాద్ 500033.
The topic relating to interrelationship between industry and environment is mainly relevant to the business management students of second year who are pursuing the subject business environment, and also for the students of DBF, Diploma in Business Finance. And this concept about linkage between environment and industry is mainly focused upon to study the various factors which are influencing the industry. Here the environment is not relates to physical environment. The environment relates to various other factors. Industry will not function under an isolated conditions. Industry is a part and parcel of the society. Society is having influence from different areas. The areas mainly relates to economic factors, technical factors, political factors, social factors, and legal factors. Over a span of time, because of changes in these things, they will influence the industry and also business. Here we have to look into the environment in its totality. Environment is not a separate one. Environment will influence the industry. Industry is being influenced by the environment. The major influence on industry is economic factors. Economic factors will influence the industry. How the industry functions, how it contributes to the society will be decided by the economic factors. The economic factors will be influenced by the background of the society. The society which undergoes the changes over a span of time will influence the economic status of a particular society. Take for example, in our country, prior to independence, we have a set of economic philosophy. That philosophy is mainly influenced by our freedom fighters who fought against Britishers for a long time, and the influence of those period is very much there on our constitutional framers at the time of framing the constitution in the Constituent Assembly. So in the constitution, purposefully they have spelled out the economic policy of the government, that is under directive principles of the state policy. The directive principles of the state policy states that economic power should not be concentrated in a few, and it should be to the benefit of the common public. So the government, keeping in view that background, reserved certain strategic industries exclusively to the government. Over a span of time, the public sector undertakings have grown in size. They have occupied a key position in the society, and in many key areas they have providing services to the society. Even though public sector undertakings have occupied a key role, due to changes across the globe, as the liberalization and privatization have taken place in erstwhile communistic countries like Russia, Czechoslovakia and other countries, the influence of those was also very much there in the thinking of our politicians, and the situation also forced the government to go for liberalization, especially after 1991. The factors for liberalization of the economy are many, and the main influencing factor is providing maximum benefit to the society by not wasting the scarce resources available in a particular country, and also to get the benefit of the external trade. When the economy is isolated and it is not open to outsiders, the benefits derived from the industry will be very limited. The government has looked into this aspect and making available the international specialization in the areas, the economy was opened, consequent to which government has allowed many industries to start their industries in certain areas where earlier reserved only to the public sector undertakings. Now, except to a few strategic areas like atomic energy and defense, the rest of the areas were left open to the public. Slowly, the reforms are taking place in each and every area. For example, In the case of power sector, reforms have been implemented throughout the country, and the state governments were advised to divide the power into three categories, that is generation, transmission and distribution. Separate companies were established by the state governments for distribution, transmission, and the generation was privatized, and independent power producers have come into this scenario. They started producing the power, supplying to the electricity boards now, so that the power was also made available to the private sector, and by giving it to the independent power producers, the economies of scale and other benefits will be received by the society. Now, in the recent policy statement, certain areas relating to the defense equipment was also kept open to the private people to start production in those areas. In view of all these things, what we observe is economic factors will influence the industry unless the industry or the people who are managing the industry are conscious of the economic factors. They could not encash the opportunities available in the environment. So, when we are discussing about environment, we have to look into the economic environment very closely. The environment is to be observed every day so as to find out the opportunities available to the industry. Similarly, if we look into the environment relating to the financial environment is also undergoing a change, especially when the government has implemented these financial sector reforms as was suggested by the Narsimham committee. The financial sector was open to the public. Earlier, the banking industry is exclusive monopoly of the public sector banks, and a few private sector banks which were established earlier only operating. The licenses to the foreign banks were very limited and the expansion was restricted. Now, when the banks were allowed to start, new generation banks have started. In the financial scenario, what we observe now is a stiff competition is going on and survival of the fittest is the order of the day. Hence, the banks which were exclusively looking after a few sections of the society now started innovating both asset side of the balance sheet and liability side of the balance sheet. Asset side of the balance sheet in the sense that they are creating more deposit products to look into the requirement of the savers. Savers community are diversified and savers will be saving, keeping in view their future requirements. They are postponing the present consumption for the future requirement. Similarly, the asset products relating to the credit were also being now diversified and innovation is taking place on the asset side of the balance sheet. Now, most of the banks have started lending to the new areas like education loan, retail loans, consumption loans and other loans. So, financial sector reforms have an influence on the industry. So, banking industry is undergoing a change keeping in view the economic factors. Hence, economic factors will influence the industry and there is an interrelationship between economic factors and the industry. Now, let us discuss about this political and legal environment. Political environment in the sense that the type of government which is ruling at a particular time influences the environment. The political philosophy of a particular government will have an influence on the industry. During the last 30 to 40 years, what we have observed is every government, whenever it comes to power, announcing its own industrial policy. The policy may be keeping in view the election manifesto which has been given to the public at the time of seeking the election votes from the public. When the public has given a power to a particular political party, the political party naturally inclined to implement its political agenda. The political agenda is being reflected in its political manifesto. The political manifesto relates to so many areas. The areas relating to economic conditions, relating to the social conditions, relating to the industrial situations, relating to other factors which are influencing the society. Hence, when a political government or political environment changes, the industrial environment also will undergo the change. what we have seen over a span of time, during the time of Congress government, when the government has implemented certain schemes like Garibi Hatao and Anchodaya and other programs during 70s, much emphasis was given on eradication of the poverty. Similarly, when the government felt the need for achieving the food sufficiency, the concept of green revolution has taken place. When the green revolution has been adopted by the government, much emphasis was given on establishing the industries which provides support to the agriculture, because the food grain self-sufficient is felt as vital area where the concentration is to be made. The emphasis was given in establishing the industries in the fertilizer, the industries relating to chemicals, the industries relating to the agricultural implements, and most of the emphasis was also given on establishing agriculture universities to provide technical support to the farmers community. Because of all these factors, much emphasis was given on the industries which are supporting to the agriculture. So the industrialist naturally has to look out the areas opportunities available, keeping in view the political environment. When that has taken place, when the power was given to the farmers at a subsidized rate, the power consumption has increased, consequent to which the consumption relating to the power in agriculture area increased, and agricultural input cost has come down. Because of this multi-pronged approach as far as inputs to the farmer is concerned, the food revolution has taken place and the food supply has increased drastically in the country. Now around 200 million tons of food grains is produced by the farmers in India every year. Now we achieved a food self-sufficiency. Because of all these factors, what we have to look into is the environment relating to the political factors also influences the industry, and similarly the legal environment also influences the industry. Legal environment in the sense that the legal situation, legal areas which are being looked out by the government is also very important. Earlier, we have a policy relating to the conservation of the foreign exchange. Foreign exchange is a precious commodity and we should use it only for importing essential goods like POL, petrol, oil and lubricants, and other certain strategic imports like defense and other things. So conservation of foreign exchange is the main area looked after by the government, especially after 1970 when there is a foreign exchange crisis. At that time, government has enacted FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act. Foreign Exchange Regulation Act is mainly keeping in view the foreign exchange requirements and to conserve the foreign exchange. But over a span of time, when our exports have increased, when our invisible receipts from NRIs have increased, now we have about $42 billions of foreign exchange resources. When these much resources were available, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act has been changed now, Foreign Exchange Maintenance Act. Now the tone of the act was also changed, keeping in view the situation prevailing in the foreign exchange. Hence the political factors and legal factors also influences the environment. Now the industries that are existing in India can look out by using the foreign exchange that is available, which is earlier reserved exclusively to a particular purpose. Hence the political and legal environment will also having an influence on the industry. The industrialists, to encash the opportunities, should keep in view the political and legal environments, and also the industries should look towards these areas to change their policies, to change their attitudes, to change their strategies. Unless they have adaptability, keeping in view the external legal and political factors, their long-term survival will become a problem. Let us discuss now about social and cultural environment, which is having influence on the industry. Industry is not functioning in an isolated manner. It is a subsystem of the society. When the industry is functioning in the society, it has to look into the changes that are happening in the society. Social values are undergoing a change now because of influence of the Western philosophy and the availability of the Western culture through TVs. These TVs have a cascading effect on the value system that is existing in our country. Earlier, the family system is a joint family system in our country, right from grandfathers till grandsons. they used to live in a particular family without distributing their wealth. Now the nucleus family concept have come consequent to migration of the people from rural to urban in pursuance of the employment opportunities. When the rural system could not able to cater to the requirements of the employment, most of the people are migrating to urban areas. When urban areas have grown, the value systems that are prevailing in urban areas are quite different from that prevailing in rural area. The requirements of urban families have now undergone a change. Because of this nucleus family concept, the areas like dry cleaning, availability of vegetables at nearby places, the families are now, instead of becoming self-sufficient earlier, have become consumption units. Earlier in rural areas, the entire family is to look after their total requirements of the family. Now the family is depending upon external people as far as their day-to-day requirements is concerned. When the industry is been established, when the industry is looking towards the environment, the social influences on the industry is also to be taken care so as to change the industrial pattern and to need to look into the requirements of the society. Similarly, cultural systems also have undergone a change. Now the culture that is prevailing in a particular society will also have influence on the industry. Earlier, the garment industry, as far as is concerned, if we look into the garment industry, earlier most of the sales are being through the cloth shops. The cloth shops are being sold the cloth and it being given to the tailors to fit it to a particular individual. Now the ready-made garment industry has improved because of change in the culture of the society. The society has accepted now this ready-made garment system and the shops and all these things are increasing now. The sales and volume under that head is increasing. The industry which is earlier only producing the cloth has to look into the change in the cultural systems. They should make an adaptability. They should also be fall in line. Otherwise, that particular industry may not continue in the society. So the industry to survive has to look into the needs of the society at a particular point of time. Unless it do it, it could not able to survive in the long run. Similarly, as far as other areas are concerned, the society, the systems relating to entertainment are undergoing. The systems relating to leisure spending are undergoing. Unless the industry which is looking to about leisure area, unless they require take care about this leisure areas, they could not able to survive. Hence, the industrialist or industry, the entrepreneurs who are in the system, unless they look into this relationship between social values and industry, they may not able to survive in the long run. Under the social factors, we can also look into the influence of the women in the changed society. Earlier, the education in most of the castes and in most of the countries was forbidden to them. Now, under liberalized policies, women are being encouraged to pursue academic qualifications, because of which most of the women is entering into the employment population. Here, when the women has entered into the population of employment, the requirements of the women are to be taken care. Now women have a purchasing power and economic power. When the power has come to women, the total concentration have been made on women now by the industries. What women is thinking about a particular product, about a particular service is being now looked into by marketing and other advertising experts. Much research is being going on in this area. Similarly, when the society undergoes a change, the power balance as far as economic power is concerned is also undergoing a change. That factor is to be kept in mind by taking a particular policy decision. Hindustan Lever Limited recently taken a policy of establishing a chain of dry cleaning units throughout the country. Earlier, these dry cleaning units were the areas exclusively meant for sole proprietors and other individuals. Now, because of this urban population which is increasing, that too the percentage of women employment is going up. The women have a felt a necessity of dry cleaning, that HLL, Hindustan Lever Limited, wants to encash it. Further, a reputed company like HLL which establishes a particular unit will be having a demand in the industry. Similarly, if we look into the other area like gold, gold has become a very big industry, especially gold processing and manufacturing of jewels. Now we have seen that Tata has entered under the brand name Tanishq and producing the gold jewelry. Here the gold market is a grey market. The quality of the gold is best known to goldsmiths only. The purity of the gold will not be assessed by a common man so easily. So now gold assaying unit are coming up in the country, whereby the quality of the gold will be known, and with that confidence public can purchase the gold safely with that assaying mark like AG mark to the other products is concerned. For gold also assaying, if it comes, it will be easy to trade in the gold. An industrialist who are in the gold area has to encash this opportunity. If they start an assaying unit, there will be a good demand for that particular type of requirement in the society. So when the surplus money is increasing, when public are spending more on gold jewelry and other precious stones and metals, the industry which is in that area, in that field, has to look into the new areas and to encash that opportunity. This is one of the area where that will be available to the industry. So similarly, in the value system also, when the society is undergoing its value system, the industry should also undergo its change. Now let us see the technical environment. Technical environment is also having influence on the industry. The modernization of industry is a must. Unless modernization takes place, the goods and services will not be made available at the lowest cost possible. When the government has announced about liberalization, there will be entry of foreign goods and services into the country. When the goods that are available in the country, produced in the country by the indigenous industry, are not competitive as far as price is concerned, the local industry will not survive in the long run. Because of the general agreements on tariffs and trade, which was announced, as India is also a signatory to the agreement, the country is to be kept open as far as imports are concerned. Earlier, the domestic industry is being protected by the system known as tariffs and quotas. To provide a support to the native industry, tariffs are being imposed for the imports, because of which the imports will become costly than the products that are available in the country. So imports are being discouraged by imposing high tariffs. When the high tariffs are also not giving effective result, there are known as quota system. With the quota system, a particular quota only will be allowed to be imported. If the quota is exceeded, the imports will not be permitted. Because of this tariffs and quota system, domestic industry is being protected. The protection to the domestic industry is required for a certain period. If the industry is being protected continuously, the public will not be made available the goods and services at the lowest cost that is being enjoyed by other countries in the world. Unless we kept open the imports, the public will not be getting benefit of international specialization. The domestic industry, unless they adopt the technology, they will not be able to reduce the cost of production. Earlier, the industries could able to transfer whatever their cost to the consumer, that is known as cost plus price regime. What is known as the cost and the profit which is expected will be loaded, and the price will be determined basing on these two factors. Now the scenario has changed. Now the industry has to adjust to the market price. Whatever the market is willing to pay, that price is the benchmark, Out of that, the cost of production is to be removed, whether there is a profit or loss depend upon the industry at which rate it is producing. Hence, the modernization has become inevitable, and the Indian industry is now undergoing a tremendous modernization process, that what we have seen in the case of textile industry. The Indian textile industry could not able to compete in the globe because of this modernization. As modernization has not been done, the cost of production in the textile industry is concerned, there is a disadvantage to the Indian industry. When the countries were open, the textile area, the industry is losing the strategic advantage which it hitherto enjoyed earlier. The modernization area which is required as far as the technology is concerned is a must for the industrialists. Hence, the industry is to look after the technical environment that is going on. The areas what we have seen, the economic factors, technical factors, political factors, social factors, legal factors, etc., are having an influence on the business. The business and industry which are surviving, keeping in view the requirements of the society, should have a constant watch over all these things. In view of this, several companies nowadays have established R&D, research and development. Earlier in the services industry, there is no research area, there is no product development wing. Now even financial services industries also have started an exclusive product research wings to innovate the new services, new service products. Hence, the industry and business which are functioning in the society as a part of the subsystem, unless they scan the environment relating to the economic factors, environment relating to the politics, environment relating to the technology, they could not able to survive in the long run. For survival, an industry should be constantly monitor all these factors, especially when the system of global village is coming due to technology advancement in the world.
మా కార్యక్రమాలపై మీ సూచనలు, సలహాలు, అభిప్రాయాలు మాకు తెలియజేయండి. మీ సూచనలు, సలహాలు, అభిప్రాయాలు మాకు తెలియజేయవలసిన చిరునామా: డైరెక్టర్, ఆడియో విజువల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ రీసెర్చ్ సెంటర్, డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, ప్రొఫెసర్ జి రామరెడ్డి మార్గ్, రోడ్ నంబర్ 46, జూబ్లీ హిల్స్, హైదరాబాద్ 500033.